Good evening, class. Thank you for being patient. I meant to get this done earlier today and then had a dozen things like you probably did come up today. So thank you for waiting. So I just wanted to touch on a couple of things for this week. I know that you've already finished your reading on establishing budget guidelines, also strategies for developing your organizational budgets, and then the types and sources of funding. So, most of you are probably aware of many of the different issues that you have. When you go into an organization, certainly as the executive director, if you're sitting on the board of directors, the primary goal of budget setting is really a roadmap for what it is you want to accomplish as far as outcomes go. So that's really what I wanted to discuss for this week is that we tend to think of budgets as being something that's set in stone. And I certainly know that when you have funding from a governmental organization, et cetera, they think of those as being set in stone. But you and I both know that just like our own household budgets, we have certain fixed costs, like our rent. We know how much that's going to be, or a mortgage payment. We know how much that's going to be every month. We also know insurance, car payments, other kind of fixed payments that we have. So those costs are easy for us to budget. We just put in that amount for every month for a year, and that's our yearly budget. Also accounting for any kind of increase there might be in insurance rates, et cetera, sometimes that we know about, other times that we don't know about. But then we have things like food, gasoline. Some of those we're pretty close to the mark whenever we justify whatever the amount is going to be, and we're making our little spreadsheet for our house and saying we're going to spend $400 a month on groceries. Sometimes it may be a little more, sometimes it may be a little less. Those are less fixed costs, and so sometimes those are the ones that give us a little bit of trouble as we're sitting there trying to figure out how much we should budget. Certainly it changes during different times of the year too. If you think about December, maybe you're doing a lot of entertaining, maybe you're spending a lot more money on more expensive foods for holidays. And so sometimes that rounds out to maybe a month in the summer where you're away from home a lot and maybe you're exercising a lot or you're not eating a lot or whatever. So those are the kind of things that you have to think about when you're putting your organizational budget together that really fluctuate. But then you have those other costs, the ones where you don't anticipate that something's going to happen. The van breaks down. And so you have a maintenance budget, but it blows all the way through that. So the point is, you can't think of a budget as being so set that if you go over or under a little bit in different categories, you start questioning whether or not you're going to have enough money, or maybe you've put too much money in a category. It really is just a roadmap. And if you think about that, it allows you to relax some of the tension that you might have when you're putting your budget together. But I did want to, with that being said, I did want to mention that you try to be as concise as you can be, you try to be as precise as you can be with your budget, but above all, you try to justify. You want to make sure that you can justify whatever assumptions that you've made as you're working through your budget, whether it be the programs that you've decided that you're going to fund, whether it be the amount of money that you're going to put into a certain program, or it could be something like the justification of how much you're going to spend on a staff person, or how often they're going to work, etc. So you just need to be able to justify that. And as we work through this class, you'll learn first how to use the Excel spreadsheet, obviously, using all of your readings to underpin some of the things that you think about as you're coming up with your programs and your numbers. Then being able to build out each one of those program budgets. I think many times, especially in our MPH program, if you have any type of exposure to budgets, it's to do a program budget. So you get $100,000, you put this program together, and budgeting. That's not really true, as many of you already know from your own jobs, or as you'll find out in this course. So you do the program budget, but then you have to account for all program budgets. Maybe I work half time on a case manager. I'm a case manager, let's say, and I work half time on that program. Another grant pays for me to be a health educator for part of my time. So I have to build my costs over each one of those programs. And all of those programs together, plus some other considerations that we'll discuss, that makes up my agency's budget. And that's where people start to stumble, is that they're not really sure how to get that agency budget in line with all the different programs. And then once they have that budget, how they're supposed to monitor it, how they're supposed to use it really as that roadmap that I discussed as a way to financially get through the year's activities. So that's what we're going to be discussing as well. And then once we have that agency budget, we're going to discuss things like in-kind donations and facilities and administration, F&A, or what's called overhead, and how you're supposed to account for that. And then more how to, at the end, when you have this budget and you're monitoring it, how to make sure that you're allocating your expenses correctly so that when, as you know from my time working at HRSA, if you know anything about me and monitoring grantees, being able to say, I'm spending this money the way I'm supposed to be spending it, I'm spending it on what I'm supposed to be um, spending it on, and all of my overhead costs and the way I've allotted those costs are fair to HRSA. If I have a HRSA budget and a CDC budget and I get my money from 5 or 10 different funding sources, that you can assure me as your grant monitor that you're only allocating the costs to my money that are related to my programs. And that again is something that we don't really teach in the MPH program outside of this course. So I'm happy that you're taking this course to learn that. So that's what I want you to focus on this week. The assignment is for you to go back now to the organizations, great organizations that were selected, to go back to those organizations and think of 5 programs: case management, health education, transportation program, a food bank, whatever it is that fits within the mission and the vision, and that's why I have that in the instructions of your organization, that you're going to cost out. Now, if you picked an organization that is mostly administrative, it might be a little more difficult. I've had some that have done that in the past because that's really the kind of organization that they want to work with. And I can certainly work with that as well. But there needs to be 5 distinct different programs, which will make it easy for us to allocate costs across, et cetera, and to do some of the work that we need to do. So that's what you need to do for the assignment this week. You need to take the Excel spreadsheet, and you'll see the one that I already have uploaded, that was uploaded in the first week, has one sheet that's been attached, and that's the case management sheet. So I'm saying for my program, I would have a case management program. And you need to copy that sheet 4 more times so that you have 5 sheets total, and name at the bottom of each one of those sheets your programs. Now, if you haven't worked in Excel before, I can certainly show you how to work yourself through that and how to do that. And in fact, the next week, I believe it is, I have a pre-recorded slide presentation on how to manipulate the Excel spreadsheet. Most people know how to do those simple renaming of the sheets and copying and pasting those sheets so that you get exact duplicates. But if you don't know how, just send me an email and say, I don't really know how to do that, and I can work out a time to work with you. One of the things that I really love to do is get on Skype or some other kind of shared site so that I can actually pull up my sheet and show you how to do that. But you need to make 5 sheets, so you'll have your main total agency budget sheet, which is the first one, and then duplicate my case management sheet 4 more times so that you have the first agency budget and 5 budget sheets after that. And then on the bottom for the tab for each one of those, name them: case management, transportation, food pantry, clinical services, whatever the 5 are going to be. Now remember, I'm really asking you to look deeply into your organization and not just come up with any programs. Try to find 5 programs that you think they would have, or that they do have, that you can find through their annual budget or on their website, etc., described. Those 5 programs, because what we're going to do is I'm going to give you a NOGA, or a Notice of Grant Award, that gives you a certain amount of money for each one of those programs, and then you're going to use that money to populate those sheets across personnel and the other 8 categories, and you're going to learn more about the 8 categorical budget and how to allocate your costs according to which one of those 8 categories you're working with. So it's a really simple exercise this week. The time really is what it takes you to read about your organization, to look at the different programs they have, to pick the 5 programs. If you don't have experience with Excel, it gives you plenty of time this week to play with it, and down at the bottom, learn how to right click and go to the, go to the click box that says to make a copy make a copy, rename the bottom of it, etc. And again, you can email me if you have issues with that. So if you get that finished quickly, you can go ahead and upload that. What I'm going to do is I take the name of all those programs so that I can send you your notice of grant award and how much money and from which sponsor you're going to be using, so that we can do our assignments for next week and start to build our budgets and learn more about the budget building process. If you have any questions about any of the readings, or if you just want to sit and talk with me one-on-one as we're moving along, if there's certain things that you want to know, you've either heard at work or you think that you really want to focus on, please don't be afraid to email me. We can certainly, like as I said before, we can Skype and have discussions about things that are important to you outside of what we're discussing in the class, or relevant to you, or something that you might want some guidance on. So I hope you have a good week, and make sure that you upload that Excel spreadsheet this week, and I'll make sure that the TA has set that so that that the times have been changed, because one student noted that they hadn't been changed and it was marking everything as late. So I did find everyone else's assignments. So thank you for turning those in, and I hope that you have a really great week.